Good morning, everyone. It's Pam here from Pam's Crafty Corner. Welcome back to my channel for another episode of Coffee, Crime, and Crafts. These are bi-weekly episodes where I discuss the details of a specific crime while working on a weekly craft project. This week's episode is going to be a little bit different. Today, I'm not going to be discussing a specific crime. Instead, I'm going to be discussing a fascinating lady who became known as the mother of modern forensic science. And her name is Frances Glessner Lee. So while we're learning about Frances, I thought I would work on my Hexi Quilt top that I started quite some time ago. I'll just show that to you. When I put away my coffee here. So this is my Hexi Quilt top. I started this, oh my goodness, quite some time ago. This is hand sewn, hand pieced together using the English paper piecing technique, where you sew a small piece of quilt fabric. I'll just show you. Here we go. You sew a small piece of quilt fabric around a paper form so that it will take shape of the form. In this case, I'm doing hexagons. And then what you do is you take each of these forms and you put them together facing each other and you whip stitch along the edge. And then when you fold them out, they would be attached. And you do that all the way around until you have pieces like this, which are larger, and you can just keep adding to it. So when you get all the sides of your piece attached, you can then pull the paper form out. So the only ones that have the papers left in these are the ones that are on the outside edge where I still need to attach a piece here. So I left off trying to finish off, where is my needle here? Trying to finish off attaching this part. So I'm going to finish this and then I'm going to start a new section that I can add in. So I'm actually doing a scrappy quilt top. So there's no, as you can see, there's no specific pattern. But these, if you can make it out here, if this was the center, this would actually create like a flower pattern around the outside. You can actually put these and coordinate them so your colors are very specific or your patterns are very specific and create a quilt that has a pattern in it. But I'm just doing mine as a scrappy blanket. So there's bits and pieces of everything in here. I was shown how to do this by Allie from Allie's Stitching Studio. Allie's got lots of experience with all sorts of crafts, and English paper piecing is one. She's done some beautiful quilt tops herself that are actually finished. So this is a great project for on the go as well because it's totally random. So I just need a few supplies. This is basically a little box I take with me. I've got some forms already done. I've got some extra pieces here that I can make new forms with. And I've got all kinds of quilt scraps that are already cut into little squares large enough that they'll wrap around my form. Okay, so today I'm having a dark roast coffee. Grab your drink and your craft of choice, and let's get started. So originally, I was looking for a crime story that I could use that might tie in with the TV show Murder, She Wrote, and the character Jessica Fletcher. Because I just finished my Jessica Fletcher sweater. Excuse me. Well, it's finished with the exception of the zipper. I'm going to insert a little bit of video here. I couldn't find a cream color zipper in the right size anywhere in the city, so I had to order one online. The one that I've got in the sweater there now is just tacked in. I just basted it in. You can't see the zipper when it's zipped up, but if you unzip it, it shows like a much darker tan kind of color. And I knew I wasn't going to be pleased with that. So I've put so much time and effort into the sweater, I figured it was better to wait for a cream color one to get here. So now I'm just waiting for that so I can put that in and then I can show the sweater off properly. So that being said, because I had already done some research with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to talk about Frances Glessner Lee while I'm sewing my Hexi quilt together here, my pieces together. So Frances Glessner Lee, she's actually something of a Jessica Fletcher character. Just like Jessica Fletcher in the TV show, was pretty much just a lay person, didn't have any legal background or experience. She was just a retired school teacher who became a mystery writer and then kind of fell into a knack of solving crimes. Frances Glessner Lee had pretty much not a similar background per se, but she was just a lay person who didn't have any formal education in the way of a university degree or anything like that. But she became very well known in the field of forensic science, as well as crime scene investigation. And police chiefs from all over the country, and I'm speaking of the United States, that's where Frances was from. Police chiefs from all over the United States would look to her and the techniques that she developed to solve homicide investigations. So Frances was born as Frances Glessner. She was born on March the 25th of 1878. So not exactly yesterday. So she was born in 1878 in Chicago, Illinois. She was born into a very affluent family. Her father was John Jacob Glessner, and he was an industrialist who gained his wealth from the International Harvester Company. He was a man, though, who believed that a woman's place was in the home, and so they didn't deserve to be formally educated in the way of sending them to college or university. He had 2 children, Frances and her brother. He paid to have tutors for each of them, and they were homeschooled. And he hired the very best of tutors. So while they were both at home, both of the children did get a pretty superb education. However, when they got older and grew up, Frances's brother went on to attend Harvard University, but Frances, that's where her education stopped. She ended up marrying a lawyer by the name of Blewett Harrison Lee. And unfortunately, though, that marriage would later end in divorce. And I couldn't really find much detail on it, but I don't think Frances ever had any children. I'm just going to tie this thread off because I'm at the corner. There we go. Now that one's all connected. Okay, I've rethreaded my needle and I'm going to start attaching these two pieces together. I've got a little knot in the end of my thread. So I'll start in the very corner here. And I like to catch my thread with a extra little loop there to make sure it's nice and snug. When I'm sewing here, I'm not sewing through the paper. I'm just catching the edge of the fabric on the top edge of the paper form. So the paper form is not actually getting sewn into the hexagon. That can be pulled out after. Okay, so I was talking about Frances and the fact that she had gotten married and that marriage had actually ended in divorce. So once her father passed away, Frances actually inherited what remained of the family fortune. And it was at that point in her life that she took it upon herself, in the early 30s, this was the early 1930s, to finally begin her career in legal medicine. A subject that she was particularly fascinated with. She had always been a fan of Sherlock Holmes stories and, you know, where plot twists would often occur due to overlooked details or, keep catching my thread here on the corner, overlooked details or overlooked clues, something minute that, you know, could have solved the crime, so to speak. So it was around this point that she was introduced to a classmate of her brother's from Harvard, a man by the name of George McGraw. George was studying medicine at the Harvard Medical School, and he had an interest in the investigation of death in particular. Frances was intrigued with the idea of being able to solve crimes by looking at them from a medical perspective and the subtle clues of a case that could be easily overlooked if a crime scene was not checked thoroughly. There seemed to be so much medical information that should be collected during an investigation that could lead to a conclusion for the case. But if those medical details were overlooked during an investigation, it could make it so much easier for the crime to actually go unsolved. So Frances and George McGraw actually developed a really great friendship. And Frances ended up giving a very substantial endowment to Harvard University, which actually helped establish the Department of Legal Medicine there, which was the first of its kind in the country in 1931. She also contributed to the McGraw Library of Legal Medicine. And George McGraw became the chief medical examiner in Boston. And he and Frances also lobbied to have the standard coroners replaced with medical professionals. Because I think at some point, coroners, and I don't know if this is still the case in some states or not. I don't think so. I think it's been changed. But coroners were much like sheriffs. They could be someone with some sort of police background that pretty much got voted into the office of being a coroner, same as a police chief could be, someone with the police could be voted in to be a sheriff. So I know coroners are all medical professionals now, but I don't know if they are still voted in or if it's just a designation that they kind of work towards, so to speak. So Frances and George McGrath were pretty instrumental in lobbying the state to have coroners, having a law put in place where coroners had to be someone with a medical background, a medical professional. As a young woman, Frances had a fondness for the hobby of building miniature scenes and dioramas. She built a couple of small doll houses. She did some reconstructions of the symphony orchestra, right down to all the little musicians as figurines with their miniature instruments. She later took that knowledge that she had of her hobby and the knowledge that she gained regarding medical death investigation and combined them, creating miniature dioramas that could be used for training homicide detectives. Frances' dioramas were so precise in nature, they were scaled so that every inch, so 1 inch equaled 1 foot, and each diorama laid out a homicide scene in very precise and accurate detail. They would include things like working windows, doors, working lights with electricity, as well as small, tiny household items that also actually worked, like miniature mouse traps. There would be food in the kitchens. They were all based, her miniatures, her dioramas were all based on real crime scenes. Oh, I just pulled my thread out of my needle. 1 second while I rethread that. There we go. My thread's getting short, but I'm coming to the end of this corner now anyway. So, her crime scenes that she made the dioramas on, they were all based on real crime scenes that had provided some sort of difficult or unique challenges to solving the crime. Some of her dioramas had a single homicide, while others contained multiple victims. The scenes were reconstructed from actual scenes or autopsy reports that Frances had either attended personally or she was provided detailed reports and photographs of. The crime scenes that she created also accurately portrayed the bodies of the victims. So not as simple as placing a figurine in the scene, lying in the right spot or sitting in the right chair. She went as far as creating a tiny doll that depicted the very accurate details regarding the way in which the victim was killed or had died, which included the condition of the corpse at the time it had been found, including bloating, any discoloration, any bruising, or injury. In total, she made approximately, I believe it was 20 miniature scenes in total. And 18 of those dioramas that she created, believe it or not, are still in use today. And they're collectively known as the Nutshell Studies of Unexplained Death. She created a unique week-long conference, a week-long seminar to teach crime scene analysis from the perspective of forensic science specifically. And through the 1940s and 1950s, this conference was put off as semi-annual seminars that people from all over the country could attend. She also traveled quite a bit. And the techniques and the manner in which to collect crime scene evidence taught during her conferences, it's still in use today. She was so good at putting that together that the techniques are still taught. Police officers as well as FBI agents from all over the U.S. actually participate in a week-long conference now that's held each year. And the attendees are split into groups, and each group is assigned a nutshell diorama that they have to study, and then they present their findings by the end of the week, essentially having to solve their case based solely on the information they can ascertain from studying the nutshell. I just think that's so cool. And this, of course, was from a lady who had no formal education other than homeschooling with a tutor. Okay, I've got another hexagon here, and I'm just going to attach this one. I'm going to lay it face down. Line up my edges. And I'll start at the outside corner here and work my way in, and then I'll fold it out like so, and then I'll attach the other side. So I'll just get this started. So when I went to rethread my needle there, I was talking about the fact that her techniques are still used to teach forensic investigation today. And that is the case. There's a week-long seminar that's held every year, a week-long conference, and people from all over the United States who have anything to do with homicide or murder investigation, they attend that conference every year. Get that little tail out of there. I don't want that cut. I don't want it pulling through to the front of the quilt top. There we go. So Frances became a renowned figure in the world of forensic science. She was sought out to provide seminars all over the United States. And by 1943, she was actually made an honorary captain of the New Hampshire State Police. This, in fact, gave her the distinction of becoming the first female police captain allowed to join the International Association of Chiefs of Police, a distinction that she proudly carried until her death on January 27th, 1962. She created such a fantastic legacy that, came from a woman that, whose father was determined that, or whose father had determined that it wasn't a woman's place to be formally educated. I came across a quote while I was looking up some information on Frances, and it speaks directly to Frances's dioramas and the fact that they were called nutshells. The quote is, "Convict the guilty, clear the innocent, and find the truth in a nutshell." So I hope you enjoyed this topic this week. I know the video is pretty short, but I was very intrigued with her life and the fact that she created basically a career and developed a form of forensic science which had never existed prior to her kind of taking the bull by the horns and saying, wait a minute, there's a better way to investigate homicides and violent crimes than just going in and looking for a suspect and a weapon. The fact that she was so intrigued by the amount of information that you could ascertain from a crime scene that could be missed. Of course, they never had DNA back then, but things such as fingerprints or finger marks that were left on items in the home, or the fact that you could tell where a struggle had taken place based upon doing a thorough analysis of the place where the body had been found. Quite interesting. So I hope you did enjoy this topic, even though it was short. My next episode, I'm going right back to crimes again. I have a couple of episodes that I think are really interesting, a couple of cases that are unsolved, and a couple of them are well known, and a couple of them are lesser known. And I will have a new episode up in 2 weeks' time. So my camera actually just shut off there for a second, and I don't know how long it was off. So I actually did finish whip stitching this piece along this edge. And when I got to the corner, I just folded it the other way so that these two pieces were now butting up against each other. And I did a couple of whip stitches here in the corner and knotted them so that the corner will be nice and secure. And I'm just going to finish going along this edge now. So if you are interested in learning more about Frances Glessner Lee and her development of forensic science, you can check out Bruce Goldfarb's book. He wrote a book about her, and it's entitled 18 Tiny Deaths, The Untold Story of Frances Glessner Lee and the Invention of Modern Forensics. So that's it for this week's episode. Please give this a like because that helps out. And subscribe to my channel if you don't want to miss out on any upcoming content. I upload these coffee, crime, and crafts videos every second week. And then I post updated videos of my crafting progress on my various projects that I'm working on every few weeks. If you'd like to help support my channel and the time it takes to research and create these episodes, feel free to check out the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description box below. A coffee is always appreciated. Until next time, stay safe and enjoy your crafting.